All right, welcome back to it as we jump into the conversations that matter most to you every single day. We greatly appreciate it. Joining me is Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Edwin Meese III Institute for the Rule of Law and Advancing American Freedom. Hans, nice to see you today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I read this story, and I got to be honest, I chuckled a little bit because the clown circus continues. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. There was an executive order sent over, and they actually said, well, is this real? Did Donald Trump actually sign this? This is not Joe Biden in the White House. This is Donald Trump. Pretty sure that if there's a signature on it, it's real, but tell the folks about this.
The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights has 8 members. Right now, it's 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. The president gets to appoint which of those commissioners will be the chair, the vice chair, and the staff director of the commission. Now, he says who he wants it to be, then they're supposed to have a vote, the concurrence of the commissioners. But the current chair, who was appointed by Joe Biden, Commissioner Garza, you remember she ran for office in Texas and lost. She's a crazy DEI open borders woman, and she has refused to hold a hearing where they can have a vote on her being delisted as the chair and the new chair that the president wants appointed. And finally, last Friday, they keep saying, well, we haven't gotten notice from the White House. Well, last Friday, one of the Republican commissioners handed them the certificate signed by the president making these appointments. And they said, well, how do we know this is real? This could be a forgery. And they recessed the meeting so they could supposedly examine the document, and they never came back in order to avoid a quorum so they wouldn't vote on it. Basically, for a year, this woman has continued to be the chair and has refused to step down.
So, all right, what is the recourse then? I mean, obviously there has to be some recourse in this blockade. What do they do?
Well, under the statute, the president has the ability to fire a commissioner for malfeasance or neglect of duty. And I think this fits well within the statute. Additionally, for example, Congress sent over a request to the commission a while ago to investigate anti-Semitism on college campuses. It went to her, and she hid that request from Congress. She didn't give it to the rest of the commissioners, and so they didn't do it. That also, I think, fits well within the statute, and frankly, I think the president ought to fire her.
Boy, will they howl then. They'll be screaming like smashed cats, Hans, all over Washington. It'll be quite something to see that happen. Their heads will explode right there in the commission. But, all right, what does the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights actually do if it's functioning as it's supposed to?
Well, it was put together in the 1960s when we actually had all kinds of civil rights issues. And what it does is supposed to study and investigate problems in the civil rights area and then issue reports. So it doesn't actually have any executive authority, but it's the reports they put out have a lot of influence on what Congress and others do. So it is important that we actually have good people in charge of it and not, frankly, political partisans like the current Democratic members of the commission.
Yeah. So here we are. The president should take action, but Willie, I mean, look, any given day, I mean, I can't even imagine the number of fires that have to be put out in any administration any given day, things you have to tend to. When does this rise to the level of, hey, we need to fix this?
Well, I know with a war going on in the Middle East, trying to prevent nuclear weapons from being developed by Iran and the many other problems, this is, I'm sure, on the bottom of the list of the president's day-to-day activities. But on the other hand, this has been going on for a year with this woman and the other Democratic commissioners refusing to follow the law. I mean, that's the key thing. They're refusing to abide by the law, and I think the president ought to spend 10 minutes giving serious consideration to terminating the chairman as a commissioner in in her entirety. She should not be on the commission.
You know, well, but you know what will happen within about 10 seconds of that? There'll be a lawsuit, and some activist judge will block the president from doing what he has the legal authority and the right to do. It'll happen almost instantly. I'm not wrong about that, am I?
No, but keep in mind that we have cases before, two cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. They've already been argued, in which he fired the commissioners of other federal agencies, including the FTC. And I actually think he's going to win those cases. And if he does, that will basically throw out and strike out any lawsuit that Commissioner Garza files.
Fair enough. All right, I got 1 minute left here, and I want you to weigh in on one other thing. That's the Virginia Supreme Court, again denying that state's attorney general's motion to certify the results of that redistricting in the state last week, I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, if the Virginia Supreme Court actually enforces the state constitution, they will find that this referendum that we just had on redistricting was invalid, because the Constitution says any kind of referendum has to be voted on twice by the General Assembly before it's put on the ballot for the people to vote. And they didn't have an interim general election in between. It says you have to have a general election in between. But when they passed it, early voting had already started. So there was no general election in between them passing it twice. There are other problems with it, but like I said, if
all right, so I got 10 seconds. Does it survive this redistricting in Virginia or not? Yes or no?
It should not.
It should not, but will it? Will not. Anyhow, Hans, always a good conversation. We don't know what these judges are going to do ever. Right. Great having you here as always, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly appreciate it. I think it doesn't survive because it should not, and it's pretty crystal clear. But will it? We'll find out. I'll take a break and be right back.